purchase of the vape detection system through our purchasing department. Mr. Berger.
Yes, sir. The high schools and the junior highs have been battling vapes in our schools. We have done education, we have done consequences, and now we're asking the board to approve another preventative measure to help mitigate vapes on campus. We would like to install vape detectors in our restroom. The funding will come through us through Title IV funds, so it will not hit our general operating budget. They have been procured and researched, and the best surveillance, security, monitoring vape detector has been chosen, and we are asking for the board to allow us to purchase these vape detectors utilizing the DIR contract and allow us to use PrevTech technology to install these vape detectors into our restrooms at the high school and the junior high.
Does the vape notify administration, or is
Yes, sir. There's a connection. They are hardwired into our internet, and then there's an application process to the vape detectors. So when they do signal, it signals the administrators on the campus through their cell phones or their computers that there is an issue in a restroom.
And who will be responsible for that follow-up when that alert comes?
It will be the administrators. And so the administrators will respond, and if it is a delayed response and the restroom has cleared, then currently all of our restrooms at the high school and junior high have camera coverage. They can go back and investigate it through the camera.
Outside coverage, you mean outside the restroom?
Outside the restroom.
Okay.
Not have cameras inside the restroom. They are hallway cameras to monitor traffic going in and out of the restroom.
Do we expect any ongoing cost and maintenance, or what will the ongoing cost or maintenance be for these vapes?
The only ongoing cost for maintenance will be a failure past warranty of these devices. The devices do come with warranties, and so it'll be a failure past warranty. Everything else should be self-contained with the purchase of the devices and the installation.
What's the warranty time?
I would have to look that up. I currently do not have that.
You know it's going to fail a day after warranty.
Well, everything does.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So I noticed that the contract number, we've awarded the lowest bid, which is awesome, but one of the ones that was just above it did not include installation. So I just wanted to clarify, the company that did give us the lowest bid also included the installation.
Correct. Installation is included in the price that's presented to you.
And will those be completed, the installation be completed by the start of the school year next year?
A majority of them will be. I can't promise that all of them will be.
Okay.
And Mr. Scheffler, it's a 1-year warranty per the.
So every year we might be faced with $90,000 in replacements.
I would hope that the failure is not 100%.
Okay, so $80,000 worth of replacements.
Have trust in the device.
That's your mistake. So I had a few questions on these. One of them you were kind enough to email a response out, so I'd like you to elaborate that out. I asked you to research if other districts have installed these and what their experience has been.
Yes, sir. And so on the data, I was not able to pull discipline numbers from each campus, but I reached out to the Brazoria County superintendents. Do you have vape detectors? What did you learn from installing these vape detectors, and what advice or unintended consequences could you relay to me? And so of all of them that replied, only one school district did not have vape detectors. The rest of them had varying degrees. Some of them had mobile vape detectors, some of them were doing a pilot program with vape detectors, and others had completely installed vape detectors. Each campus reported kind of the same thing, but different processes for implementation. There is an initial increase in alarms, in vape detecting, which you hope happens. That either students do not realize that the vape detectors are in there, or they don't believe that they are legit. Some of the school districts do have dummy vape detectors because they couldn't afford the funding, so they're just trying to mitigate the students using the vapes. And then of course there is an increase in the apprehension of students vaping on campus. Our goal is not to increase punishment on students. Our goal is to combine education of the difficulty that come with vapes to your health, to the criminal consequences that are to you, to the removal from campus, as well as mitigating and deterring them from bringing them to school. If you know there is a detector in the restroom, we hope that common sense presents itself and you no longer vape in the restroom. And it is an ongoing issue at our high schools and our junior highs. It is sad to me in our community that you can go to any gas station and you can buy a THC vape. Now, you can debate Delta 8 or Delta 9 or however the law may be, but our students can acquire these pretty easily. And so they are bringing them to school and they are using them in the restrooms at a high number. So our high schools and our junior highs feel like this is a mitigating factor. It has been shown at the other districts that have installed them, there has been a decline after the initial increase of detection or finding students with vapes on campus.
Didn't one of the ones you sent us to say that it was just unmanageable, the number of?
Not to mention the school district, because they emailed me. It was the size of the school district. They're not as large as we are. They're a smaller school district, so there are obviously always more students than there are administrators on a campus. And so if you have 10 restrooms and all 10 restrooms are going off and you have 2 assistant principals, they can't go get all of them. So there were some schools that reported, just like it is now, it is an unmanageable situation because of the number of vapes that are being brought on campus. And so with the number of alarms that they had, they could not respond to all of them. So that was something that they ran into.
On these vape systems, where are they placed?
In the restroom.
In the restroom, one ceiling.
Yes,
Okay.
sir, in the ceilings.
Okay, good. And they wanted to be in the open somewhere so they can rip them out of the wall.
So-
And that's, they are visible, they can tamper with them. And so, it's just like a fire alarm. In the past, if you had a fire alarm in the restroom and they wanted to tamper with that so they could smoke. Our students, as you saw with all of the great awards that we have here, are innovative and ingenious. And sometimes they put that brain power to nefarious ends. And so we have to try to work around those.
Thank you.
I just want to know functionally how this is going to work out. What's it going to look like? When we start the school year, we have these new vape systems. We hit a ton of dings on them or alarms. How are we going to handle that? What's it going to look like? What should parents expect?
And a reminder that we're talking, these THC vapes are a felony. So,
Correct.
how's that go?
So 2 parts to that. One is currently in the law, and then I believe it's House Bill 114 that was passed by our own, or promoted by our own Representative Ed Thompson, is reducing the requirement that we currently have that if we find a student with a THC tested vape, we are required to expel them. Required, we have no option. House Bill 114 has stepped that back from saying shall to may. We may expel them or we may place them in a DAEP. And so we have that opportunity to work more as a learning experience with our students as far as a punitive experience. Because we have students, and JJ will tell you this, they are full of THC vapes from every school district. And the students that are going to JJAEP are the best students they've ever had. Because it's relatively a good kid that's made a bad choice and brought a vape to school. It's not necessarily the violent offender that JJAEP normally deals with. So they're enjoying the students that they're getting because of the felony charges. We don't want that to be the case. But how it'll work is, inevitably, if you take Pearland High School, they respond now based on reports and walkthroughs and security guards of what's going on in the restrooms, the hot restrooms. What will happen is there will be a number of reports that happen initially. They are going to test the system. Students will test for vulnerabilities. Our APs will either apply in time to catch the student in the restroom, or they're going to have to retroactively go back and investigate it just like we do now. What parents can expect is the same thing they expect that they have happen now. If a student is caught, there will be consequences at the school, the parent will be communicated, and we will follow through with a procedure to educate students on the negative effects of vaping, as well as hold them accountable for some bad decisions that they make. Will we catch every single student that vapes? No. We're not expecting that. What we are hoping is, like I said, through the transparency of our educational process, informing the parents that this is out there, informing our students that this is out there, that we mitigate them, prevent them from bringing them to school. We would hope we prevent them from using them at all, but that may not happen. But at least, if you choose to do this to where you do not have the consequences of having the elevated charge at a school.
Is there any way for us, and I don't know how you would even write this in policy, but that anyone that is caught with this penalty be required to do some kind of extra work to document for themselves, or like a book report or something on the dangers of vaping and requirement and a consequence, something that's like a natural consequence to taking that action?
That can kind of happen. The difficulty of that is if the student refuses to do that, then you're compounding discipline on top of that. So our procedures would be in-school suspension and possibly move to a DAP or a JJAP. If while you're in ISS, we say, hey, we need you to do this research or write this exploratory on the dangers of vape, and they choose not to, then are we going to punish them for choosing not to do that writing? So are we compounding discipline? But one thing in the law, the House Bill 114, and I hope I'm saying that number correctly, not getting confused, is part of it is drug counseling. So if a student is caught with a vape, with a nicotine or a THC vape, that part of the consequence is drug counseling. And we have a partnership currently in our school district with Lakota, so we have that availability. So when we do have this offense, part of the procedure and policy will be speaking with the parents and speaking with the students to give them the intervention of counseling.
So I still have some problems with the process, and it's not limited to the vape things. I'm all for discipline, and I think that we're pretty lax on discipline. I think we have a difficult time offering real consequences to kids that need them. And I do think that consequences deter action and criminality and all those things. And in some kids you can't deter it. You just gotta get them somewhere else so that you can continue teaching the kids that you can't help. My problem with this is knowing, so JJAP, kids are getting sent there for 65-day placements or 60-day placements or whatever it is. They're coming back after 20 days. And they're coming back to campus. They're not even going to ALA. They're coming straight back to campus. While you might have kids with lesser punishments that didn't commit felonies that are in ALA fulfilling their time and putting in their hours, these kids that are committing these felonies and that have been kicked out are getting to walk right back in. And so then we're talking about adding to the number of kids that we're slapping on the wrist, because that's what it ends up amounting to. It's like we're going to chase more kids and cause more paperwork and a bigger headache and all these things, and the kids are gonna see through the game. Because when their friends are back after 2 weeks, with the number of kids that we're seeing there, probably won't be 20 days anymore, it might be 14 or whatever it is, they're gonna realize, hey, it's no big deal. I can do this and get away with it, and even if I get kicked out, I'm gonna be right back in here again before long. And I'm very, very much against empty threats. So if we can solve the discipline side and the pipeline that gets these kids punishments as deserved, saying this is someone who made a mistake in high school, saying this is somebody who got a ticket in high school and had to go to alternative learning. You know, I went to ALA, I was there, and I'm not ashamed to say it because it was a very interesting experience. I got to see a different side of education that I'd never seen before. But I took my lashes, and then I got back to campus, and I never committed that mistake again. And I don't think that holding a threat over kids that has no teeth is beneficial to anybody. It's gonna make a lot more work for administrators, it's gonna be a lot more ghosts to chase down, and the kids are just gonna play the game.
And to answer that, there's lots of facets to that. One, JJAAP, the way it has been assigned, there is a number of seats. There's 70 seats. And all of the school districts in Brazoria County that feed into JJAAP, they all, I don't want to say fight, but they're all up for those 70 seats. So if the seats are full at 70 and Alvin ISD has the next one, then the one that was last in gets bumped. So if they hadn't served their 65 days, they come back. What JJAAP based on this is that the smaller school districts were saying, now wait a minute, we're not getting to keep our seats. We're only sending one and you're sending 30 and ours are getting bumped. So what JJAP is going to do now is they're going to allocate seats based on size to each school district. So that way our students won't get bumped. So if Alvin continuously is sending kids, and I'm not picking on Alvin, I'm not saying they have a problem, I'm just saying that if Alvin continuously sends kids, then they're bumping their own kids. To where Pearland ISD, if we do not continuously send kids, then our students will serve that 65 days. Now, can capacity override that? Well, it depends. Now, again, we have the leniency of the new House Bill 114, where we're not required to send them to JJP. We can send them to DAAP and they can serve their time there. ISS is also an option for that. The other thing is, even at 20 days or 28 days, the issue for the students going to JJAP is we only take them there The parents, the family has to get them and bring them back every day. So I wouldn't say that is a slap on the wrist. It may be a reduced sentence from 65 days to 28 days, but it's not a cakewalk. It's not, yay, I get to go to JJAP in Angleton. I mean, they have to travel every day and pick them up every day. The other part of that is without this deterrent, and that's what I hope this is, a mitigation, a deterrent, the APs on campus are still chasing this. They're still chasing the vapes, and they don't have the extra ammunition of a device in a restroom that signifies them that, hey, this is going on. They may be on cafeteria duty and never go by that restroom, but if the students are in that restroom smoking and it goes off on their phone, then they can get there. It's another set of eyes or ears, if you will, for the administrative team to respond to a problem that we're having on the campuses. Again, students will play games with everything we do, and if we do not have consistency in the consequences, you are correct. It's a game.
Well, and that's what it comes down to, is I know that ALA is small, and it's a campus that's running 2 schools, basically, 2 different sides with 1 team. And even if you use that resource, that's not a big facility space-wise, let alone staffing and resources. And then you've got ISS, which, again, takes people to run that. I just want to know that there's a commitment from the administration that if we're going to chase these things, there's going to be actual, real consequences that will be meted out. And it's not just going to be, oh, well, we just don't have the funds or the ability to do that. We're just going to keep letting it trickle down into something less and less.
And that's not our goal, and obviously the math equation, you are correct. If we catch 200 kids, we don't have necessarily placement for 200 kids, and so we have to figure that out. But just like this year, although we may not have wanted to expel all the students, we did. And I think this year we have expelled almost 70 students from the junior highs and the high schools. We have not let any of them go. Also, and I know you're not saying this, Dr. Scheffler, in education, I don't want to build more prisons. I don't want to build larger JJAPs or larger DAAPs. I would like to educate our students. I would like to educate our parents. Some of our parents are kind of unaware, and I don't mean that to be disrespectful of what is out there with the vapes and the THC and what's available, and educate the students that, hey, this is not okay. Because some of our students that are being caught, they're not the ones buying it, they're not the ones bringing it to school, they're the ones that are influential enough that when I'm sitting in the locker room or I'm sitting in the cafeteria and I go, hey, Mr. Murphy, why don't you try this? And they take it and they get caught with it. And so I want to continue to educate as well as have the discipline consequence. And so I guess to answer your question succinctly, yes, we are dedicated to hold the consequence, but we also want to educate and hopefully mitigate the process from ever happening.
Do we know if House Bill 114 is being signed?
It's on his desk.
So,
I don't
probably.
I don't know.
Strong likelihood from all indicators that I've read or like listen to podcasts and all that stuff.
That's where my mind goes, is that if we know that there's gonna be an uptick, then you almost have to define down the discipline requirement. You don't say it's gonna be 65 days or whatever at JJAP, you say it's gonna be 20.
And
Just be honest about it.
And ultimately, the number of days that are assigned to JJAP is a function of the school district. We don't have to assign 65, that's kind of what we've always done. And we've talked about, do we bring it down to 30? Do we bring it down to smaller? Even other school districts and the superintendents, when we get together, the discussion has been, does the 65 days warrant the crime? Are we doing one size fits all? JJAP would like to run their program because it's a 65-day program. But as a school district, and superintendents, some districts have done this, the first offense they're going to do a 15-day placement. The second offense they're going to do a 30-day placement to make the punishment meet the crime, if you will.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
But just to clarify, Dr. Scheffler, you're supporting the item that we're using to help provide tools? Are you saying that you want to see more discipline before you're able to support something?
I would be against it if it wasn't for House Bill 114. I mean, and it would be against it because I don't want to see empty threats. And I think that when you can't fulfill the consequences, I don't threaten my kids with taking away dessert and hand them a candy bar after dinner. So it's the same thing.
You can't discount the deterrent aspect of it, though. I mean, I would say that, yes, it's kind of like having a dog and for protection, and somebody says, well, someone could just throw your dog a steak and they wouldn't protect your house anymore. But the fact is, most criminals are gonna just say, you know what, I'm not gonna mess with it. And I think most teens are, not most, but I would think a lot of teens are there. There are some that are gonna figure out, oh, this isn't that big of a deal, JJAP is not a big deal. I will, you know, I can get around the monitors, but most of these kids are doing it because it's there and because everyone else is doing it. And I can say, we had breathalyzers at my senior prom. I didn't have a drink. I did not, I mean, just the deterrent, just the idea that, and we were told, you know, if you get breathalyzed at the prom and you fail the breathalyzer test, no graduation, no senior activities from that point forward. And it worked. I mean, it worked not for everyone. There were some drunk people at the prom, but I will say there were a whole lot less drunk people than there were at the Christmas dance. And it's because of that. And so the deterrent aspect really is gonna make a difference in a lot of kids' lives, I think.
Well, I guess, let me speak on this, because my 2 cents is this, is that, you know, hearing what Dr. Scheffler is saying, what Mr. Berger is saying, and I'll equate this to almost as a teen sneaking out of the house in a weird way, but, you know, the idea, what you're asking Mr. Berger is he gonna enforce the rules? Are the APs and the principals at the schools gonna enforce the rules? I believe yes, they are gonna enforce the rules. But if you have no alarm system on your house and your kid sneaks out, you do everything you can to catch them, and you do catch them sometimes, you don't catch them sometimes, but once you put that deterrent or that system in, the idea is you have a better chance of catching them. And I think they're 2 separate things. I think what we're voting on tonight is we're approving them to get the tools to help them versus, you know, what the disciplinary action is. And we can certainly have a conversation, you know, about how we handle those things or where the district is, or, you know, get a report on those things. But I don't think we necessarily need to take the tools that help them chasing the ghosts per se already out of their hands.
No,
Because they're still doing that now.
No, they will, they're gonna do more of it.
Well,
They're gonna do more of it. And
I think it only helps them, you know,
the more
if they have
kids
that.
exposed to a system that doesn't follow through. If you're the parent that's constantly screaming, or you're the parent that's constantly threatening a spanking, or you're constantly trying to take things away and then you never follow through. And that's what it comes down to. I'm not against the deterrent aspect, and I do think it's a deterrent. When you see a policeman sitting on the hill with his radar gun out, you do the speed limit, right? And you're not doing 5 over or whatever else. So there is a deterrent aspect. But when you know they won't pull you over for 5 over, tell me that the thought in your head isn't, well, I know it says 35, but I can really do 40. Because there's no penalty. And I just want to make sure that House Bill 114, we can redefine the penalties. And if we redefine those, I want to know it's something we're going to stick to.
Certainly, and I think that what.
And I appreciate you bringing forth the transparency of the capacity issue, the legal issue, because there is also that issue of Delta 8 versus Delta 9 and the legality of THC and cannabis in Texas and how it impacts us. And after they get caught in school, what happens in the court is different. Than we don't deal with that. And we have had conversations. I mean, Ms. Holt and Ms. Darden talked about how can they increase the effectiveness and the capacity of DAEP at PACE, and how can we work with the JJAP, and on cue, there she is.
Well, I just want to say that as a former principal of a high school, deterrent is always our plan, right? We would like to catch no students and discipline no students. That's always, keeping them in the class is the best option. But with vapes at the rate we're catching them at this point, and I know the law is changing, it is House Bill 114, I believe that these vape detectors will at least let the good kids, and 99% of these kids who are getting caught this year with vapes have never been in any trouble. They are very good kids. They say they didn't know it was a felony. They didn't know they would go to JJ. So if we can put these in, and they can know they're there because we're going to send something out to the parents. Mr. Berger may do a Burger Time on, vaping and the consequences this year with the new House Bill 14. I think with them talking, the APs talking to the students in their orientations with good communication, I believe that we will not stop vaping. As far as the penalty and the consequences, I don't know of a campus that is not consequenced. Whatever we say for nicotine vapes, they are giving them ISS. First time 5 days, second day is 10 days. We will do the same thing. Yes, we have to look at AOA because the new rule allows us to place them there, and it is a small campus, and we've already begun talking about that. But we have never, as long as I've been a principal and even an associate principal, ever had a time where we had a consequence and we said, we don't have enough space to do that. We will figure out a way students and hold to our consequences and our student code of conduct at all times.
So if these are a deterrent, are we gonna have signage that also says
Yes.
vaping is a felony, detector, you know, all that fun stuff, right? Like,
We can
don't
put
do it.
the principals are really the ones that have pushed us, I will tell you. They feel like they would rather, they don't want to catch the students, right? We want to deter, we want to tell students, don't do this here. Do we think that kids are still gonna vape? Kids are vaping in the bathroom right now, we're not catching them. So it's not like putting in a vape detector is going to make kids not think about vaping in the restroom. But if they know it's there, just think, if 50% of them say, I'm not gonna take the chance, because if that goes off while I'm in here, I might have a consequence that is ALA. It's hard to do my AP classes while I'm in ALA. Or I'm having to go to ALA and my parents have to take me to school every day. The consequences that come with that, I believe the deterrent, and that's our goal, is to use it as a deterrent, will diminish the number of vape devices that we have caught. And I don't wanna speak in general, I'm just gonna speak in generalities. We have not had kids multiple times go to change an AP mission. These kids have learned their lesson, and with the parents I've talked to this year, they have been very supportive and understanding and thankful that they were informed of this issue their child is having, so they can step up and give the child the help they need. And so I think that this is a serious problem that a lot of parents are not aware of, and we believe vape detectors takes it to the next level, gives us another thing to show parents, we believe you need to keep them at home. Please talk to your students.
I think that, again, based upon the approval of this tonight, that it'd be prevalent that Mr. Berger or whoever communications send out information through Skyward at the beginning of school, letting them know that these.
Well, even this year, I sat down with Officer Beavers and we did, don't do that. And we talked about vaping and social media threats. And so we are working on a campaign to make sure we inform people, don't do this.
Yeah, again, I mean, I speak as a, parent and a board member, and I mean, we've got to, again, this goes, a little bit of it goes back to parent engagement as well. I mean, we've got to, keep these parents involved and make sure that they know that this is going on so they can talk to their kids.
It might be helpful too, our signs your kid might be vaping. Here's what a vape looks
Right.
like, cause a lot of us don't know even what it looks like, so.
They're manufactured now to be deceitful too.
Correct. Yeah. And again, we'll move forward and unless we have some more comments, but again, we get back to as a board and, thinking about our district and our educators, their job is to educate, and we spend our time, tracking down this type of stuff and worrying about this when we should be planning lessons or lesson planning. I mean, it's just part of the new world that we're kind of facing as school districts. So.
Next, I'm gonna request that we get cell phone detectors and social media detectors and all the other technologies.
I think that's a comment that I take pause with, is that I don't think this is the new world, I think this is the new thing.
Right.
Like, I think every generation had something that the administration was trying to help people recognize that was not healthy for them, that it's a rite of passage for teenagers to buck the system and to understand boundaries and to have consequences for those things so that they can learn. I mean, that's a part of being a teenager. But one question I had, just to clarify, this funding source is a grant, so it's not coming.
It's Title IV funding, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
What is Title IV funding? Sorry. It's Title IV funding.
It's not our GO, it's not tax-based, it comes through federal funding. We have Title I, Title II, Title IV.
Okay.
It's money we get from the federal government.
Okay, so this is not coming out of our M&O budget?
It is not.
And this is a point of contention with the struggles that we're having financially. This is not something that we're approving even though we have financial struggles.
Correct. We have different funding sources that come through us through title and through federal monies that come to us, and we are allocating those to help us in this process.
Well, we know money's fungible, so what would this $90,000 go to if it wasn't vape detectors?
So what we have with Title IV is a situation where, the year of COVID, the year we went out, 1920, the federal government and TEA basically extended the life of the current Title IV. This next year, we're getting about $130,000 in Title IV. We don't get a lot of money. But when COVID happened, they extended the life of the current grant, and we had to spend that before we could spend the next year's allocation. And so what we have is this little bubble of money that's a one-time thing, and that The money expires September 30th of this year. It can roll over into next year, but we won't even receive that notice until May of 24. And so it's kind of a one-time pocket of money to allow us to try this. But when the high school said that, we had this problem, we needed to help it, we kind of have this one little pocket of money that we've got available. It's not an ongoing fund.
And Title IV funds are allocated just for this type of process?
Absolutely. So the Title IV funds can be used. We use about a third of our Title IV funds in supporting well-rounded education, so that it helps in all of our classrooms. But the main thing that TEA wants us using that money for is to support safe and healthy students, safe and healthy schools. And some things we've already done with our current Title IV funds is we've had a couple of parent information nights. We had one in May about screenagers, and it was a movie that Dr. Moore showed, and it talked about vaping and those dangers. And then we've got another one already scheduled for September. So we are doing some of that parent education piece out of these funds as well. And that's something that we can sustain. It's not as much money, right? It's only about $1,000. So that's a sustainable thing. It's $90,000 is not.
But it's not an open bank account. We have certain restrictions on what we can spend the Title IV fund for money on, and this is one of them.
But that Title IV money can also be a resource in the future that when these vape, when the end of life is reached for them, that we could tap into that fund again, that it
Yes.
would not be,
Particularly if it's a little amount over time. We're never gonna have another $90,000
Right.
lump sum for the relative amount of money that Title IV is. It has the most restrictions out of any of our federal title monies in the ways that we have to spend it. So it's an opportunity for us.
it's just, like, for example, when we used ESSER money for air filters, and then once we did that, if we wanna repair those air filters, it's gonna have to come out of our M&O budget, because that grant funding is not reoccurring, but different than this is what I'm understanding.
Correct. The Title IV will always be there. ESSER is not coming back.
Thank you.
And remember that a large part of
Maybe.
this amount of money is the installation. Once the installation is done.
Correct,
you don't
30,000
have
of
to
it.
Replace like your smoke detector in your home that's hardwired, you don't have to replace the hardwire. So the campus could probably, the high schools could probably support replacing one or two if something happened out of their own budget, because they're not having to have them installed, which is a large.
Sure.
Gotcha.
The only question or comment I would make about that I've seen in our security is that basically where any type of reoccurring cost might be is the upgrade or updating software. What goes to your phone is the software they might have proprietary over, and anytime they get ready to upgrade it, they may.
We asked the company about
Yeah.
that, and they said that it's just a one-time upfront fee, that there's no ongoing
Okay.
cost.
Awesome.
Thank you for that. All right.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Trustees approves the purchase of vape detection systems as proposed.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item B3 as presented for the vape detection system. After much discussion, I will ask if there's any further discussion upon this item tonight. If not, we have a motion by trustee Scheffler and a second by trustee Carter. Hearing no further discussion, we'll